Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into your weekly dose of college football. I believe this is the third episode trying to start this series back up where I react to different things happening. Of course, we've got college football week 1 coming up, and we've got some different posts. So it says, longest active FBS season opening winning streak. No surprise, Ohio State and Alabama, number 1 and number 2. Alabama, 41-point favorites over Utah State the last time I checked. And, of course, the Buckeyes opening with that top 5 matchup. They're 17-point favorites over Notre Dame. But how about Air Force at number 3? And, guys, Air Force is actually projected to be pretty good. Cincinnati at number 4, that's a streak. That's in danger of ending. Cincinnati faces Arkansas on the road. They're about a touchdown underdog. I like the under in that game. And I also do think Arkansas with KJ Jefferson will beat Cincinnati and snap their 11-game season opening winning streak. Appearances at number 1 in the AP poll. So the reason I wanted to show this is because I do think Ohio State, who surprisingly hasn't been ranked number 1 in the AP poll since 2015. 2015 was the last time they were number 1. If they destroy Notre Dame, I do think most of the voters will move Ohio State to number 1 in front of Alabama. Of course, if Alabama comes back week 2 and destroys Texas on the road, they'll probably switch it again. But it is interesting. You can see Alabama with just such a commanding overall lead in terms of the appearances, every week as the AP number 1 team. Oklahoma at number 3. I don't see them ever being ranked number 1 this year. Same thing with Notre Dame, USC, Florida State, teams like that. But it'll be interesting. If Ohio State destroys Notre Dame, people are going to be talking about Ohio State possibly jumping the Crimson Tide. And then if Alabama crushes Texas, do they just take back the number 1 spot? How about this? Charlie Brewer. I'm sure many people remember him at Baylor. He has been named the starting quarterback for Liberty. So Charlie Brewer, originally at Baylor, transferred to Utah. I think he was the starting quarterback for Utah week 1 of last year. Of course, it ended up being Cameron Smith, who's a transfer in his own right from Texas. So it's just crazy how many transfer quarterbacks and just transfer players overall we're going to see. This is a dude who was at Baylor for multiple years, transfers again, and is now the starting quarterback. Apparently, Kirk Herbstreit had this quote, I like Nebraska to win the West. That was before Nebraska's week 0 game against Northwestern. With Nebraska, fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 3 times. Listen, it's getting out of hand with Nebraska. If you are Scott Frost and you want to have a even semi-elite program, just win 8 games. That's all we're asking, just 8 games. And you lose to teams like Northwestern, it's unacceptable. You cannot lose. If you need to keep your job, you need to win 8 games. You got to beat Northwestern. You're 13-point favorites, and we were all, once again, buying into the Nebraska hype. All the close losses. They're competitive. And once again, and it wasn't even like Nebraska severely outplayed Northwestern. Now, sure, the onside kick and things like that were dumb, but I thought Northwestern showed itself to be, on par with Nebraska. That should be the scariest thing for Nebraska. Next, we've got Desmond Howard giving his playoff predictions. And guys, the key thing you should take away anytime you see something like this happens with Fox and their Instagram posts when they show their top 25 polls. These people are trying to generate a reaction. There is no way, if you told Desmond Howard, life or death situation, who are you predicting to make the playoffs? Texas A&M is just way too young. Even if you wanted to say they have the talent, very rarely do you see a team full of true freshmen do anything, let alone make the playoffs. How about Texas A&M gets to a New Year's Six game first with all those true freshmen? Baylor, I don't think Baylor's making a New Year's Six game, let alone the college football playoffs. Pittsburgh, I don't know. I'm not sure on that. And then Michigan, we all know he's a Michigan fan. Okay, whatever. But guys, these are just meant to generate reactions. That's all they're trying to do. They are not, the goal is not to predict the 4 playoff teams. Anyone can do that and be boring and use FPI and say it's Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma, because the analytics say this. Anyone can do that. I would not be reacting to this post right now if Desmond Howard said his 4 playoff teams were Ohio State, Alabama, Utah, and Clemson. This is the reason he does this. So we react to it. That's what this is, guys. It's the day and age, getting clicks, getting people to talk about you. It wouldn't shock me if ESPN encouraged this type of stuff so that he would be talked about, ESPN would be watched more, things like that. So you just got to understand, there is no logic behind these picks at all other than to generate interactions and things like that. So this is the 2022 Pac-12 predictions. I don't know who did these predictions. I'll just react to them. So USC going 12-0, it's not going to happen. USC is going to need time to gel. Caleb Williams, when he's a junior, will probably be the Heisman favorite, but this year I see USC dropping 2 games. They have Utah going 11-1. So maybe the Pac-12 with multiple teams in the playoff, that would never happen. But imagine if USC was 12-0 and Utah was 11-1 and Utah's only loss was to USC. Could they get 2 teams in? Oregon going 9-3. And then how about Colorado going 0-12? I haven't looked at Colorado's non-conference, but I'm guessing Colorado faces some crappy FCS school or group of 5 team. I don't think Colorado's going to go 0-12. I know they face Minnesota, and I expect Minnesota to win that game. But that's just also UCLA, the disrespect. The disrespect to UCLA, Chip Kelly, Zach Charbonnet, that's disgusting. UCLA is going to win 9 games, in my opinion. Schools with a win in Ireland, a very exclusive club here, Notre Dame. The only other Ireland game I remember outside of the one that just took place, I think who was Penn State facing? You guys remember with Christian Hackenberg? There was a time period when people thought Christian Hackenberg, and some people will remember this. There was a time period people thought Christian Hackenberg was a lock to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. There was apps like an auto lock because he was a 5-star and he came in and he showed promise as a true freshman. He showed promise, and I remember Penn State. I don't know who they faced, but they beat someone. It might have been Northwestern. I don't know. It was a really boring game. It was like week 0. I think they won 17-7 or something. I don't remember Pittsburgh going to Ireland. I don't remember Boston College. Or any of those other teams. Next, we've got Vanderbilt's quarterback apparently recorded college football's fastest max speed in week 0. He hit almost 22 miles per hour, tying Derrick Henry's mark for 6 fastest in NFL last year. So this was interesting. So 22 miles per hour, of course, Vanderbilt destroying Hawaii. And Hawaii might actually be the worst team in FBS. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But this would have been the 6th fastest mark in the NFL last season. So this dude was moving. And Vanderbilt gets a huge win. And then this is ESPN. So ESPN is doing their rankings for the worst teams in FBS. They rank UMass as the worst program, so 131st. Hawaii at 130th. And then New Mexico State at 129. And New Mexico State kind of kept it competitive in their week 0 game, but they did lose. And I think there's a case to be made that Hawaii, based on how they ended their season last year, the losses to their program overall, they might be the worst FBS team at this point. Next, we've got what game should you not sleep on this weekend? What is an under-the-radar game you're excited about? I agree. Oregon State and Boise State. Oregon State playing at home. They're a field goal favorite, so it's basically a pick 'em. I like Boise State to win this game outright, but Oregon State's going to be decent. I believe they have a returning quarterback, a veteran team. That should be a really good under-the-radar game. Other people were saying Appalachian State, North Carolina. That's another good one. But just something to keep your eye on. I think that Oregon State, Boise State game is at 10:30. And then we got, why is Michigan's non-conference schedule so bad? So Michigan's non-conference schedule has gone from really bad to just completely horrific in the span of about a week. Because you look at their non-conference schedule originally, yeah, sure, Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, but now with how bad Hawaii is, it's possibly, I mean, UConn's like one of the top 5 worst teams in FBS. Hawaii is possibly the worst team in FBS, and then Colorado State is probably like the 90th, best team in FBS towards the bottom. So it is one of those years with Michigan where it's just so horrifically, epically bad, and I don't really want to knock Michigan too much because they do normally have a decent enough non-conference schedule. I know they faced Notre Dame. They've had, it's different home and homes and things like that. Normally they have a pretty decent non-conference schedule, but this year it is horrific. Like two of the worst teams in FBS, bad. And then there's no Power 5 teams in it. Who will end their championship drought? Honestly, none of these teams, right? So I'm guessing Texas A&M is the new Georgia, meaning we know Georgia, the whole 1980 thing, it's been forever. It's been way longer even with Texas A&M, 82 years. But yeah, as long as Texas A&M doesn't experience crazy roster turnover, with how they recruited in 2022, the narrative surrounding them is like they're going to be the next team to break through and break the crazy drought. Penn State at 35 years, certainly they're not going to win it this year, although they do have an extremely young superstar true freshman quarterback who's not going to be starting, but watch out for Penn State. They've also got a young 5-star true freshman running back, James Franklin, building a young nucleus. Not this year, next year for Penn State, and then even following that, Notre Dame at 30. Man, Notre Dame, 33 seasons. I think it'll help a lot of these teams if we do go to when we do go to a 12-team playoff, probably in 2024. Michigan at 24 years. They made the playoff last year, but got crushed in the first round. And then Tennessee, Tennessee with the SEC schedule, it's going to be tough, although they are in the East. Schools with multiple players in the NFL Top 100. So I'm sure many people know the NFL coming out with their Top 100 list every, right before the start of the season. Ohio State and LSU both with 6 players. I guess I was a little bit surprised that Alabama had less players than Ohio State and LSU, although I know LSU always seems to have studs in the NFL. How about Fresno State with 2 players? Derek Carr and Devontae Adams? I wonder if Derek Carr was in here. Cal with 3 players. Jared Goff. No, obviously Aaron Rodgers is one of them. I know Jared Goff is another player from Cal, but I'm sure he didn't make it. Mississippi State with 4 players. Dak Prescott, Chris Jones. Yes, players like that. So that's just interesting to look at all those players there. And then we've got the longest active FBS losing streaks. Florida International sitting at 11 games. We've got Duke. I think Duke is in the running for the worst Power 5 team. Next, Indiana at 8 games. How the mighty have fallen. Indiana needs another pandemic. That's what they need. Nebraska has lost 7. I guess if you go 3-9... They went 3-9 last year. You're probably going to lose a lot of games in a row. Stanford it's David Shaw. David Shaw has fallen off. And then Temple at 7 games. So good. We've got a matchup in week 1. Temple at Duke. I think Duke is 7-point favorites. Or is that game at Temple? I'm not sure. But either way, that's a real slugfest. At least one of those teams will get a win. And then this is the final thing I wanted to look at. Northwestern's even year success, which is now a narrative again because they beat Nebraska. You can see 2018, they were 9-5. They were 9-5 and made the Big Ten championship game because of how bad the West is. Then they go 3-9. Then they go 7-2 in the pandemic year and they make the Big Ten championship game again. Then they go 3-9. Now they're 1-0, guys. I will say Northwestern was impressive against Nebraska. I thought they played them pretty evenly. It wasn't like it was a fluke or anything. But my guess is maybe 5 or 6 wins for Northwestern. They do have Ohio State in a crossover game. I haven't looked at their schedule to see what other teams they have from the East, but I know they face Ohio State, so that could be, pretty challenging to get to 5 or 6 wins. I think their goal should be to make a bowl game, honestly. But guys, those are just some random things I wanted to react to, something I like doing once a week, especially with college football season starting. But that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.